From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made in 2019 in New York City with World Pride. More than 5 million people attended the International Festival's various events. Companies like Delta Airlines, Starbucks, the NBA, among others, were corporate sponsors. Needless to say, it was a huge event. Fast forward to 2025 when the festival is being held this week in Washington, D.C. As reported by NPR, attendance and funding for more than 300 events are down, and organizers say it's due to policies and rhetoric from the current administration. From executive orders targeting DEI, orders banning transgender people from the military, to the president's taking over the Kennedy Center board, World Pride organizers made changes to their plans and have reported that attendance has dropped from previous years. They point to concerns that international travelers have about coming to the United States. A singer named Zach with the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C., said that some choirs chose to stay home. He told NPR, quote, "Anti-trans and anti-queer policies made a lot of people, especially those in foreign countries, feel like they were not welcome here," end quote. On the corporate side, as NPR reports, a recent survey found that more than a third of 200 Fortune 1000 companies plan to decrease their support of Pride events this year. Much of that decision-making comes from concerns about support being seen as tied to DEI. Companies like Target are taking a muted approach to celebrating Pride this year compared to past years. According to USA Today, this month marks the 55th anniversary of the first LGBTQ plus Pride March held in the United States. And Rochester is going to celebrate some Pride events in June, of course, which is officially considered Pride Month, but Rochester's festival is in July. Our guests this hour preview local events. They're going to talk about how they are seeing some of these national conversations as well. Let me welcome to the program. Welcome back to Terrence Pleasant, Director of the MoCA Center and Community Engagement at Trillium Health. Nice to see you.
Hey,
Thank you for being back.
having me.
Nathan Bentz is Communications Director at Trillium Health. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Also, across the table from Nathan is Karen Treadwell Collins, board member for the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And welcome to Evan Dorscheid, member of the Rochester Gay Men's Chorus and its dance troupe, the Rochettes, and a member of the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So the Rochester Pride is happening on July 19th. If you want to mark your calendars, parade there. It's going to begin at 11 a.m. at the intersection of South Avenue and Science Parkway, traveling north along South Avenue, ending at Highland Park, and the festival at Highland Park from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. July 19th. RochesterPride.com is where you want to go for information there. Terrence, let me start with you. I'll go kind of around the table here. You know, reading that NPR report from Washington, I have to say, just in talking to people in the last few weeks, I'm not surprised. I talked to a colleague who attends a lot of Pride events, and he was kind of grumbling that it was in Washington to begin with. He's like, of all places, D.C. But he said, you know, you're going to see some people just not go. You're going to see some people not feel welcome. What do you make of some of what's going on there?
What I make of it is, I think now more than ever, it's a time for everyone to not stay home, to get out and show their pride, to get out and be seen and be active and celebrate diversity, celebrate individuality, celebrate, oh my God, it's right on the tip of my tongue, various communities, you know, that are already suffering. Thinking about the BIPOC LGBT community, especially the trans community. I think it's time for us to get out. I understand the fear. I understand, and I don't even know if it's fear. I think frustration is outweighing the fear in this case. Like, we're frustrated with so many different policies, so much rhetoric going on, and so, but yeah.
Nathan, what do you see?
Yeah, I think we see the same thing. I mean, you were talking about the trends that we're seeing nationally, and we're seeing that here in Rochester too. You know, our sponsorship numbers compared to last year are down. You know, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know that they are down. Number of registered parade participants isn't what it was at this point last year. So we're feeling it, you know, and we're hearing from, you know, some of the donor. I think it's a combination of factors at play. We're hearing from some of the, you know, the partners we've had in the past that some of it, I think, is playing into that rhetoric and concern from a corporate perspective of how they're being viewed in the community. We're also hearing economic too, because that's one of the issues we're dealing with as well. A lot of companies, you know, with uncertainty with tariffs and things like that, aren't, it's the cultural side of it, but it's also just the bottom line financial impact of people not knowing how their business is going to be impacted, and are pausing corporate sponsorships and donations company wide, not just for LGBTQ plus related issues.
Karen, what do you think?
We hear more from our members of looking for that safe space and looking for that home, and we are hearing a lot of uncertainty from some of our members of their not feeling safe out in the community, or they're not feeling secure in their futures and things like that. And so, being the community that we are, we're not strictly a just LGBTQ group. We are made up of LGBTQ folks and allies, and try to make that space a safe space and a welcoming space, and a place where we can all be ourselves, who we are, in that space. And we're not getting hit quite as much by the corporate, because by the corporate pullback, because we really focus more on the local community as well. Our donors for fundraising and things like that, we try to focus on local businesses and locally owned businesses. So we're not feeling that quite as much. But what we are feeling is a little bit more hesitancy of about being public, and so we're trying to make sure that our folks feel safe, and that when we and also saying this is who we are. It is okay to be us, and we're going to celebrate, and we're going to continue to educate and continue to reach out into the community and be visible as a group, and let those that maybe aren't feeling safe to be out in the community know that you're not alone. There are lots of folks out in this community. There are lots of folks around that, even though you're hearing so much in the news and so much negative press about our community, that you're not alone. We're still here, and there are still safe places.
Okay. Evan, what do you think?
Yeah. Personally, I'm scared and frustrated by the current political environment, but that's why the communities that have been developed in the choruses are so important to me. It gives me a place to go back and be with folks who feel the same way as I do. And then anyone who sees themselves in me also knows that they would belong there as well.
Well, listeners, if you want to weigh in, it's 844-295-TALK. It's toll free, 844-295-8255, 263-WXXI if you're in Rochester, 263-9994. You can email the program, connections@WXXI.org. You can join the chat on the YouTube channel if you're watching on the WXXI News YouTube page. To Nathan's point about corporate and business support, I want to note a couple things. I mean, certainly when, number one, the economy's down, number two, there's a lot of uncertainty, there may be a smaller budget to support events. I take that point. But I also want to read a little bit of Forbes reporting on national sponsorship. So this is on just Pride events across the country. Amtrak, Anheuser-Busch, Benefit Cosmetics, Boeing, Booz Allen Hamilton, Citi, Comcast Xfinity, Deloitte, Garnier, Goldman Sachs, Lowe's, MasterCard, Meta, Nissan, Pepsi, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Sky Vodka, Target, Visa, and Walmart pulled back Pride sponsorships and donations this year. And there was certainly some pressure from the administration to do that. So, I don't want you to pull back the cover on local conversations, and I don't know how much you could say anyway. But do you have a sense locally when there is a sponsorship decline, how much of that is because, hey, the economy's kind of rough, we don't really have a budget, versus like, we don't want to be a target based on what we're supporting, and we know that there's a lot of sensitivity to that. Do you have a sense for that?
I don't have a lot of insight into that. It's really our development and foundation teams that have those conversations. I can say that I know it's a mix. I know that there are certain groups that are, or that at least we suspect the reason is the cultural side. But there's others that have said, straight across the board, it's economic, and we aren't doing this for anything. That if it's and I'm not familiar with which companies we're talking about here, but I know in some cases it may be, I don't even know if they're based here or not. We have a mix of national and local sponsors, but it may be a case where it's a local branch of a national company, and the national company, it's coming from headquarters saying, we're just, kind of like what we saw during COVID and stuff, where we're doing employment freezes across the board until things stabilize or until we have a better sense of the outlook. So, I don't really have the insight into the specifics, but from what I'm hearing from our teams that are having these conversations, we're definitely seeing both.
So, Terrence, when you say this is a time to go out and be seen as supporting, no matter your identity, for people who are nervous, feeling anxiety, what would you say to them if they're on the fence about either maybe going to Pride, supporting with dollars? What would you say?
I would say, it's the one day of the year where everyone comes together. People who are part of the community, allies of the community, to celebrate, have a good time, be free. I think Pride, if anything, is a celebration of freedom. And so it's the one day of the year where over 20,000 people come together in one shared space, have a good time, listen to good music, see good performances. And so I would say to those people, we have worked very hard to create a safe space. One of the highlights for me is the Mocha tent, which is something. And Evan, you owe me a visit to that Mocha tent.
We
talk
you a
about
visit.
this every single year.
I owe you a
and
visit.
So I wasn't going to end today without inviting you again to the Mocha tent. So you have to come and you have to see the ball.
July 19th?
July 19th.
All right, here's my promise. You ready for this?
Oh, okay.
I've got a child due on July 20th.
Oh, congratulations.
If he is not born
Okay.
by the 19th,
Okay.
you're going to see me there.
I'm going to hold you to that.
And if he's born before then, you'll see us next
You're
year.
gonna be tired, so don't worry about it. I get it. I get it.
But then we'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year.
But Terrence, you're right. You're right. And I know that sometimes it feels like everyone's got a reason. But that's the reason I wanted to ask you about why this year maybe feels like. Does it feel important to feel
I
a
do.
community
And so when I think about the Black and brown members of the LGBT community, when I think about the trans members those are the people who I really want to see. I want to see everyone, but I really want to see these people out more, because I feel like everyone's feeling it, but the trans community is being targeted at such a higher rate than a lot of other communities under the umbrella. But it's one day some of us are fortunate to be who we are in our day-to-day lives, and it's very fortunate I get to work at a place like Trillium, where I'm encouraged to come to work and be myself and have that type of support in the workplace, and even outside of it with family and friends and things like that. But so many people don't have that, and so we work very hard to make Pride a safe space. And so I just want everyone to come out. Feel free, have a good time, celebrate who you are, celebrate who you love, celebrate your individuality, and most of all, celebrate your freedom.
What would you say, Nathan?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I keep thinking about that's changed so much, even in the last 10 years, but especially under the current climate, is it's a double-edged sword, the role of social media, because I think that in a lot of ways, especially before we kind of entered this current climate, there were a lot of benefits to social media. People who didn't normally have access, maybe, younger people who are just starting to come out or, realize their own, explore their own sexuality or identity. This was a space to connect. If they didn't have that inherent safe space at home, or if they just didn't know other people in the community, it provided that olive branch. But at the same time, as easy as it can work for good, the opposite is true too. You can't help but log on to Facebook and the other platforms, especially with the algorithms the way they are now, and see the hate. And I think for a lot of people, people we work with, people that are clients that we serve, and people in the community, they see that day in and day out, and it really takes a toll, I think, over time. And so for me, I think that is, to Terrence's point, the power of being there and seeing, last year we had a record 20,000 people. And even if we don't hit that record this year, you're seeing thousands and thousands of people coming out to say, I'm either part of the community with you or I'm an ally. I believe strongly in this. And it's a day that when you're walking, I have the benefit of being able to record the parade, so I get to walk down the whole route and see all the faces, beautiful faces and beautiful messages, and see that show of support and people from all walks of life, from young families to there was a retirement community that came out last year and marched in the parade. I mean, how amazing is that? But to be able to see that and feel that energy in person, I think really goes a long way to erase. I mean, you can't completely erase the hate that always leaves a mark, but to remind people that there are so many people in this community who love you and support you for who you are. And this is a day where we can embrace that, and you can kind of forget, and I realize not everyone can completely forget, but, just have that moment to let your guard down a little bit and be relaxed and be you in a safe space and an affirming space.
Karen, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and the in a lot of ways, the loudest voice is the one that's heard, and the loudest voice is the one that directs the public opinion. And through our concerts, through our WCC's concerts, through our GMC's concerts, and through the Pride events, we can be the loudest voice at that moment. And so we can be that public opinion at that moment. And if that can carry through, if the Pride is the parade and the festival, that's one day, 2 days with the picnic. But that's one day. But if we are loud enough on that day, figuratively loud enough, and we speak to enough people and we share with enough people on those days, that feeling can carry through. And that's kind of the importance, I think, of having these Pride events throughout June and July. I think there's been a few small events here and there leading up to now. Our concert is on Saturday. Our concert is this Saturday, and so we are starting our Pride celebration right now, and we can start being loud now. And by carrying this through all the way through until July 19th and beyond, we are being that voice. We're celebrating. We are enjoying, and we are celebrating. We are jubilant about being the loudest voice, and that can spread.
Evan?
Yeah. Events like Pride and our chorus concerts are important to provide that space for people to show up as they are, and relax, and be with their peers and recharge from the day-to-day, more frustrating environments.
Are you optimistic that's going to happen?
At Pride?
Yeah.
I'm counting on it. I'll make it happen for myself and my friends and my family. But yes.
Let's talk about some of those events coming up here. But first, let me grab a phone call from Frank in Greece. Hi, Frank. Go ahead.
Hello. I just wanted to say I'm a straight white male, Irish Catholic, and I know of two, possibly three businesses that are very LGBTQ by, I can't get all the letters straight, but what I want to say is I believe Monroe County, city of Rochester, is richer because of these businesses. And I think it's a testament to the intelligence of everyone in this community, in the Finger Lakes region, that we are kind and we are open-minded and we don't shove people into boxes.
Okay. Yeah. Let me ask our guests what they think. What do you think there, Terrence?
First of all, thank you, Frank. And I can't keep up with all the letters either. But no, thank you for that. And it just shows that I know it's so cliche to say, but I think we're stronger together. So if we continue to show up as a community, continue to support one another across the Finger Lakes, across Rochester, Monroe County, we'll continue to show we can't be defeated, and we're stronger together. And
okay, Nathan?
Yeah, I think I also don't want to minimize too the wonderful organizations that are sponsoring it. We do have a number of really great community partners that are coming back, and that's not to say that the people who may not come back this year aren't great community partners either. We do understand there's a lot of factors that go into it. Also, I do want to make a quick plug that we are still accepting sponsors. So if any of those LGBTQ plus businesses are listening and would like to contribute, go to rochesterpride.com and we can set you up with a sponsorship package. Every little bit helps. But yeah, I do think that there's going to be the naysayers in any community, but I agree with Terrence. We're better together, and I think we are very fortunate in this community and in this state to have the level of support from all levels of communities, businesses, allies, to have that really community-wide support.
Karen, what would you say to Frank's phone call there?
I would say he's absolutely right. A community is made up of all of the bits of the community. It's made up of all of the people within it. And the more that that community can work together and support each other, regardless of one's beliefs or one's leanings or anything like that, the more that we can support each other, the stronger and more positive and healthier community we have.
Evan?
Yeah, it's always nice to hear from allies who are out supporting us. It's important because we're not going to be able to make significant change all by ourselves. We can show the way, but we're going to need support from the larger community.
So let's talk a little bit about a timeline coming up here. And I think Karen mentioned you got the spring concert Amplifying Voices coming up on Saturday, June 7th at the Harley School, the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. What's going on there, Karen?
So we chose this year for this concert to look at the voices in choral music that aren't generally as forefront in music. Historically, choral music is the composing of choral music is dominated by white men or men of European descent, and that holds true across the arts, whether it's literature, poetry, dance, even in the intellectual areas in academia and that. And so what we have chosen to do for this concert is to amplify the voices of composers who are pretty much anything but straight white men. So we've got music by Black and Indigenous and people of color. We've got music by women. We've got music by at least one, if not two, trans composers or arrangers. We've got music by LGBT folks as well. And each of the pieces that we chose also speaks to that social. Also has a message of community support, social justice, being yourself. One of our pieces should be familiar to much of the LGBTQ community, or if not, where have you been? We are going to be singing I Am What I Am from La Cage. And so that's the gist of our concert is, not only can we be who we are, but it's, use your voice, speak your voice, be you. And that's what we're hoping to do with these composers and also with the businesses that we're highlighting in our fundraising there at the concert.
Open to the community.
Absolutely open to the community. It is on June 7th at the Harley School over at 1981 Clover Street. Admission $15 for most folks. $12 for seniors. Children under 12 are free.
What time are you starting?
We are starting. I believe we are starting at 8 o'clock. It is not written on my information
We'll get that
sheet
for you.
here. You can find us at therwcc.org, and that does have the start time on it.
I know you'd love to see the community there. So.
Absolutely, we would love to sell out and have standing room only, and we will make space for you. We can always add chairs to the space.
Evan, are you performing in that one?
I am, yes.
Okay, what are you looking forward to most there?
Oh, I love the variety of the songs that we've chosen.
All right, so Saturday night.
Saturday night, it's either 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And I apologize for not having the correct time on that one. Tickets can be bought online or at the door. Cash is king. We've got some fantastic raffle baskets featuring local businesses in there. So bring cash for tickets and go home with something memorable to take with you.
7 p.m. says the website.
7 p.m. says the website. Thank you.
Don't be late.
Don't be late. Do
Karen,
not
don't be late. Evan, don't be late. 7 p.m. So that's this Saturday, June 7th, and that's the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. Now, the Rochester Gay Men's Chorus has its concert on Saturday, July 12th, a week before the Pride official festival, and that's happening at 7:30 p.m. at Hochstein. Evan, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Our theme is It's a Jungle Out There. That started out as a collection of animal-themed songs, but then evolved into a reflection of the current political environment and its impact on marginalized communities. So we'll be singing songs like Bat Out of Hell, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and Crocodile Rock. Our dance troupe, the Rochettes, will also be there. We have a couple small groups. The Rochester Women's Community Chorus will also be joining us that evening, as well as the Flower City Pride Band. So a good kickoff to Pride Week in Rochester.
Again, that's at Hochstein, open to the public.
Open to the public. Tickets are available online at thergmc.org. We have a discount code for listeners today. That would be Evan. Made sense for both of us. Yeah, check us out.
And you're doing Bet Out of Hell. Is that a Meatloaf from Meatloaf?
You bet.
Okay. Meatloaf, who passed, I think he died of COVID.
He did.
He did, right? Yeah, okay. But very talented. I always felt like, very theatrical. It felt like it was just such a perfect fit for, a men's chorus. The LGBTQ chorus is out there. Is it a fun one to do?
It sure is, yeah.
Yeah, that's some great albums back in the day there. So that is coming up July 12th. Saturday, July 12th at Hochstein, the Rochester Gay Men's Chorus. This Saturday, June 7th, the Rochester Women's Community Chorus at the Harley School. You're all set for that. When we come back from our only break, we're going to talk about what is coming up specifically on July 19th. Rochester Pride is happening, and it's happening, as we mentioned at the outset, of a backdrop of some cuts in funding, not just from corporate sponsorships, but in cities across the country. San Francisco's budget's down $200,000. New York City, down 20%. Salt Lake City, $400,000 or half of its budget cut this year for Pride. Washington, D.C., $250,000. Kansas City, $200,000. St. Louis, $150,000. I mean, budgets are down, and it has not been an easy time. That's partially why the people in this room are saying, more important than ever, that they see you and that they would love to see big numbers. So we're talking about why they feel that way, and we're going to come back and continue the conversation after this only break.
Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Mary Cariola Center, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson, believing an informed and engaged community is a connected one. MaryCariola.org.
This is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Rochester Pride officially on July 19th. So next month, that is a Saturday, a parade beginning at 11 a.m., and the festival in Highland Park, 11 to 6. Of course, always food, drinks, games, activities, vendor tables, live music, performances. And you can check out rochesterpride.com if you want information on what's going on there. Trillium is here. ESL Federal Credit Union are also the premier sponsors. Is that correct, Nathan?
That is correct.
Okay. And so, Nathan and Terrence, do you want to kind of take us through the events of the day on July 19th?
Yeah, so it all, like you said, it kicks off at 11 with a parade. The parade starts, same lineup as last year. It'll start at Science Parkway and go north on South Avenue. Same route as the Lilac Festival Parade, if you're familiar with that, and ends at Highland Park. It's, like you said, a lot of great events. We are working to address a few. Last year was our first year with this new parade route and festival location, and we think it worked out tremendously. But there's always improvements to be made, so we're making a few little tweaks based on feedback that I think people will like. One is parking. Parking's always a concern when you have thousands of people, gathered trying to get all at the same place at the same time. So in addition to the lots adjacent to the festival site, which is already an improvement over what we were able to do in years past, we are working on creating a shuttle to have additional parking off-site and have the shuttle bring people in to both the parade lineup area and the festival, and then also back. We're still finalizing the details, so I don't want to say too much, but there will be more on that coming. So the shuttle will be an additional feature this year. Also, porta potties, a big issue. We're adding porta potties to the lineup and the parade, which will also be accessible. So that will be another thing. And then another fun thing that is, we all know that alt beverages have become a huge trend with people looking for alcohol-free choices. It's a huge national trend, and we're seeing it locally too. So we're definitely expanding those options at all of our beverage tents this year. So that's another just exciting addition. Other than that, it's just a lot, everything that you've come to expect in years past. A reminder for us as well, bring cash, because we're mostly cash. There might be a few vendors that accept credit, but primarily it's going to be cash. So make sure you bring that, and to help move things along quickly, buy tickets online ahead of time for the festival, $5 online.
I have a little forecast for you.
Yes.
All of the rain that has happened, that was the whole year's rain in the last month. It's over.
I hope it is. We've lucked out the last few years, as my annual Pride sunburn can attest. I changed on our team's account. We have our little avatars, and mine is Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob SquarePants to represent my real bad sunburn a few years ago.
That means it's a good day.
It is, and even with the SPF 50, it's you can never have too much. So bring your sunscreen too.
You had 20,000 people.
We had 20. I mean, I'm not there counting, but
That's the estimate.
20,000 people last year, which was absolutely incredible.
What is is that bursting at the seams? Could you do it again?
No, we could absolutely do it again, and we could do more. That's one of the benefits. There's always questions about why we moved it from Park Avenue and Cobb's Hill. And, while we love those locations, they were constricting in terms of, especially for the parade lineup, having to keep those streets closed with, the dozens and dozens and dozens of floats lining up, and, being able to have almost all of, Science Parkway, for those that you don't know, is a dead end, basically corporate office park. Trillium Health has a location there. That's not the reason we chose it, but it is an advantage. So we can basically close down that entire road and not have to worry about the logistics of making sure we can accommodate people and not have to turn people away. We can have more floats because the site's more accommodating. And there's a lot of benefits to the festival site too. One being, it's a proven site for the Lilac Festival. You have paths in place, so it's a lot more accessible to make sure that everyone can enjoy it. Where before, it was a flat lawn, so there were some complications with that. And it overall is a bigger site, so it's we can. Don't worry about it being tight. We can fit as many people who want to come out and enjoy.
What are you looking forward to most about Pride this year, Terrence?
I mean, of course, I'm biased. So of course, I'm going to say the Mocha Ball.
Tell us about the Mocha Ball.
It's always so much fun. I like it because for those who are familiar with ballroom culture, it's a competition, but not just the competition piece. I see creativity. I see friendship. I see community. I see family, and I see so many Black and Brown community members who only come out on Pride to come to the Mocha tent to be a part of community and to express themselves through dance, through performance, through their costuming, known as their effects. It's a lot to behold, but in a good way. It's so much fun, and yeah, I love it.
I got to make you do a little definition here, because some listeners might have just heard you say ballroom culture, and they go, "Oh, I like ballroom dancing."
No, totally opposite.
It's
dancing. It's dancing, but not the type of dancing.
WXX's Raquel Stephen wrote a piece for City about a year ago that really kind of went deep on this, and it was eye-opening for a lot of people who haven't seen it. So, ballroom culture, yes, the proper term, not old-timey ballroom dancing.
No, not old-timey ballroom dancing. Ballroom culture, it's a collective of. It's a collective of community that's made up of houses. So the houses, everybody wants to be the best house, the biggest house. And so the leaders of the house are the mothers and fathers. The history of ballroom was the leaders of the mothers and fathers. They would literally take in uh, young teenagers who had been disowned by their family, literally thrown out in the streets. Ballroom culture got its start
Because of their identity.
because of the identity, whether they were trans, gay, whatever the case might be. They were literally displaced, and so the mothers and fathers of the ballroom houses would take them in and hone their skills, whether it be sewing, dancing, strutting their stuff on the catwalk. So we have that here in Rochester, and the culture, the community here in Rochester is continuing to grow. We have 5 main houses here. And some wonderful, wonderful community leaders and house leaders that I have the wonderful opportunity to work with I work with them so much. We have such a wonderful relationship with them. So to see it all come together, and some of the houses from Syracuse will come down, some of the houses from Buffalo will come down. Our Pride Ball has become so popular that we're even bringing in people from as far as St. Louis, Philadelphia, New York City. So yeah, we're the place to be on June 19th. Come to that Mocha.
July 19th.
Did I say June 19th?
You did.
Oh, July 19th.
June 19th is Juneteenth. There'll be other stuff going on there.
June 19th. I said June 19th because our friends at Roar will be doing the charity bingo. So the Mocha Center is the charity for that night. So that's why
Gotcha.
June 19th is in my mind. So.
But July 19th for the Pride Festival.
Right.
Got a question from a listener about the parade and the events. Said, never been there. Are they family friendly? So let me start with this question. Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. We every year, and that's one of the highlights again, to see every walk of life, and we have young families. We have, I see. I think one of the most heartwarming images that I captured for our parade video last year was, this big tough guy driving his big, big 4-wheel pickup truck. With a sign on the side saying "Proud Dad," and it had, I think it was, I don't know if there was multiple younger people on the back. So, but somewhere in there was, his child. You see parents with their kids on their shoulders. It truly is a family-friendly event, and we see people again, all each other end of the spectrum too. We have people in mobility scooters and with canes and walkers and wheelchairs and. The retirement home marched last year. It truly is a parade for everybody, whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus community or an ally, or just, or generally supportive and just want to have a good time and see what it's all about.
Well, related to the listener's question, maybe let me ask you about something that we observed, and this is reporting from The Hill with the headline, Republicans attack PBS for Pride post from Sesame Street. And I'll read from their piece now. A group of congressional Republicans accused PBS of grooming children after Sesame Street and Sesame Street accounts shared a social media post recognizing Pride Month with this caption: "On our street, everyone is welcome. Together, let's build a world where every person and family feels loved and respected for who they are. Happy Pride Month." So that came from the official Sesame Street accounts. And the RSC, the Republican Study Committee, which is a coalition of GOP House members, they posted and said they are asking PBS to, quote, stop grooming children. The Sesame Street Pride Month post drew backlash from other House and Senate Republicans who say that should be used to justify the administration's argument to cut funding from PBS. Nathan, let me start with you. What do you make of that?
I mean, it sounds like a terrible world, Evan, where, we're condemning, we have people accepting people for who they are and wanting to have a loving environment. Doesn't that sound like a terrible, space to be? Sadly, that's the reality of, the current divisive climate. But, I think that this is a day about love, and who you are as a person. It's not about what happens in the bedroom behind closed doors. It's a day to just express, love for one another. And people have different preferences. People want to spend their lives with different people, and it's a day to celebrate that. If you wanted to take that argument at face value, and say, we shouldn't be doing any expressions of love, are we canceling Valentine's Day too? Where that you could use that same logic to say we don't want to see any public displays of affection from anybody, because we know that, if a man and woman are kissing in public, what are they doing in their bedroom? We don't want to expose somebody to that. It's interesting that, and this is speaking just as a person here, but it's It's interesting how that argument turns. It's only applied to the LGBTQ plus community. It's never applied to, a straight couple.
Terrence, what do you make of this whole blow up over this post from Sesame Street?
In all honesty, as a parent,
And do me a favor, get real close to your microphone.
as a parent that's raising a kid, my son has 2 dads. I can honestly say we're only grooming him to be the best version of himself. We're only grooming him to go out and be a productive member of society. We're grooming him to love everyone, to respect everyone, and to let people be. So I don't think we're grooming him for anything other than to be who he is and to be the best version of himself. So.
Karen, what do you think?
I'm pretty much with Terrence on this. My wife and I have raised 2 children. They are adults now and out starting to look at creating their own families. And I mean, the way that statement was written about Sesame Street it just makes it sound like, oh no, you can't love children. You can't teach children to love, and that grates on me. That why should children be taught to love everyone? And that, to me personally, that mindset is what takes away children's innocence, not by making things like my family, Terrence's family, Evan's family, the families, by making those families the villain, that's what takes away children's innocence, not teaching children to be accepting and loving of other people.
What do you think, Evan?
I wish I had access to a message like that from Big Bird when I was younger. I don't think I am myself right now. I don't think that would have made me any different. It just would have helped me get here sooner.
So where do we go from here? I say, this is, it's 2025. We are 10, 11 years since Obergefell in the Supreme Court. There's, I remembered conversations a decade ago where it was like, look, progress is never a straight line. But for the LGBTQ plus community, it felt like, what felt impossible for so long felt achievable. And not just Obergefell. I mean, like, that's a section of it, but that's not everything. And now, certainly Obergefell could be reviewed and in jeopardy. I mean, there's different mechanisms to do that. Some members of the Supreme Court have indicated a desire to do that. And the culture war was at the forefront of the last election. The culture war was very powerful. And we've talked to people who were on the losing side of the last election who told us on this program, we didn't expect it, but we lost the culture war. Like, we're losing right now. I know I'm not talking about you personally. I'm talking about where things are. Do you feel like there has been a loss in the culture war? Or does it feel surprising? I mean, like, how do you assess it, Terrence, and where do we go here?
Honestly, I don't think anything surprises me anymore. I think I'm out of surprises when it comes to things of that nature. Mm-hmm. I think where we go from here is that our community, we have always proven to be a resilient community. We've come through so much. When you think 55 years ago to Stonewall, when you think about the HIV and the AIDS epidemic, when you think about where we are in terms of all the progression that's been made with legalizing gay marriage, you see so many same-sex couples raising families on their own terms now. I think if we just hold on to that idea and to that theme of resilience, eventually we'll get through it.
Nathan?
I think, like you said, it ebbs and flows, and I think we are regressing in terms of that progression that we had worked towards, when leading up to and following the legalization of same-sex marriage, where we have regressed in recent years. I think back to well, especially everything that's happened recently at Penfield High School. I graduated from Penfield in 2006, and I remember, we had our yearbook senior superlatives, and we had two young women in a same-sex relationship chosen as one of the best couples. And I remember the joke, what's the key to your success of the relationship? And they both joked, no men involved. But, but this was 2006 and no one batted an eye. Everyone loved it. We accepted them for who they are and embraced that. There was no public outcry. It was just great, and it was what it was. And
2 decades ago.
Right. That's the other depressing part. 19 years since I. Yeah. But thank you for that reminder. But
I'm aging you, man.
That was 19 years ago, and if that were to happen now, I can only imagine it would be. I mean, the same district now. We're having the debate over a book in the library, which is a whole separate discussion. But I do think it's. I hold out hope, that this understanding that these things come in cycles, and I also think there's other things at play. I think that these issues are being weaponized as a it's a proxy fight. This isn't the real heart. This is being used, I think, for political purposes to manipulate bigger cultural arguments. And this is just people saw this as an opportunity, a low-hanging fruit opportunity to galvanize certain people. And I'm hopeful that time will pass and that we I think the sentiments, when you get outside policy, I maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I think the general sentiments of the larger population, I think, are moving in the right direction, and hopefully we can get back on track.
I want to get Karen and Evan on this. I want to grab a phone call from Joyce, who I think is going to build on some of those points there. Go ahead, Joyce in Pittsford.
Indeed, thank you so much. That's so well stated. And thanks all for this program. I think many of us who are allies have had the sheer joy of participating in Pride events and celebrating these incredible victories over the decades. And it's painful for us to recognize how much pain and fear now infects our LGBTQ plus community. And as I think you were saying, the autocrats historically target vulnerable communities and strategize how to keep us separate and fearful. And that fear has certainly affected the Jewish community, given the recent horrendous events. Your focus on coming together can't be stressed enough. We need to support one another to resist the actual oppressive people and policies. So onward.
Joyce, thank you for the phone call. Karen, what do you think?
I think that this last election caught us off guard. I think we were, after the previous, the 2016 to 2020 administration, I think we were a little too confident coming into this last election, and the way it went kind of caught us off guard. And we collectively, we didn't anticipate just how far they would go. But yes, it's gotten worse. I think it's going to I think it's going to droop farther for us before it gets better. But at the same time, we've come out on top before, and we're going to do it again. We're not going to let anyone push us back into the closets. We're not going to let anyone erase us. We are going to stand up for our brothers and sisters and siblings in our community. Our allies are right there next to us. We're needing to figure out how to come together successfully and do this. We have more tools at our disposal now than we did 55 years ago when we really started the fight. And so we will be back in the more relative safety area, safe zone. But I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better again.
Evan?
The last election, I saw a lot of political attacks against trans people. I, like Karen, I'm afraid that it could get worse before it gets better. But like our caller said, like working together, more rights for some of us is going to equate to more rights for all of us.
Let me read a couple comments that came in on the YouTube chat. Fraser says, one of my favorite things about Pride is refilling my energy about my community and the things that are so powerful and joyful about it. I think that's part of the point Nathan was making, the kind of the burst of energy and joy that you see every year.
Yeah. And to your point as well, I think it carries on. It's something. It's not just it's the feeling of that day, but that is something. It's recharging those batteries to continue forward and carry you out until next year's Pride. And also, but pointing out too, it's not the Pride Parade and Festival are one day, but there's many events happening across the year. I do want to recognize that we have the Pride picnic on July 13th from noon to 6. I say we, that's not a Trillium Health thing, but it's a wonderful community event. We do have a link at rochesterpride.com. And then there's many other events throughout the year, throughout this month, next month, and all throughout the year where people can continue to recharge their batteries. We don't have a link to that, but I urge people to Google Rochester LGBTQ Plus Together. They will have a wonderful calendar year-round of events that people can use to, recharge their batteries year-round.
The Pride Picnic is the Sunday before the festival. So July 13th, Sunday, the picnic, noon to 6. The 19th, Saturday, the festival. What do you want to put on people's calendars too, Terrence?
Well, we are actually getting started on July 17th. From 6 to 8 p.m. at the Mocha Center. The national campaign No Hate, they're coming back to do their photo shoot, which is a lot of fun. That Friday, we're doing something new this year. On July 18th, we're going to host a Pride Prom, which will be a lot of fun. Want people to come out, have a good time. It will definitely be an adult prom, so I want people to come out, have a good time. Of course, the festival is on the 19th, and on the 20th, we're going to end the weekend with the Pride Burlesque Show. So some new events for Mocha and Trillium this year. But we're doing the prom and the burlesque show in collaboration with Wave Women, Inc. With Giovanna. She was here last year.
Yeah.
So Giovanna's company, they're putting that on. So.
RochesterPride.com for the schedule. I'll close with this. Moonbird on the YouTube chat says, I moved to Rochester from the South last year after the election, choosing it deliberately for its support of the LGBTQ plus community and how we're enfolded into the larger community. It's an important value that none of us are safe unless all marginalized people are safe. I'm proud of what Rochester is working towards. Of course, we're not there yet. That's from Moonbird on YouTube. Thank you for joining the chat there. And thanks to everyone who took part here. Terrence Pleasant, Director of the Mocha Center and Community Engagement at Trillium Health. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Nathan Bentz, nice to see you. Communications Director at Trillium Health. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Evan.
Thanks as well to Karen Treadwell Collins, Board Member for the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Evan Dorscheid, Member of the Rochester Gay Men's Chorus and his dance troupe, the Rochettes, and a member of the Rochester Women's Community Chorus. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much.
And from all of us, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we're back with you tomorrow.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.